Hello, I'm John, and you found my channel, John Reviews It. Today, we're going to be talking about bi-amping your speakers versus just running individual single channels, or using it like I have my home theater set up. I have independent monoblocks for my front stage, and using a secondary amp, whether it be one of these two or different ones, for the rest of your surround sound system setup. So here's what I did to run my test. I actually use this Buckeye amp here at the top for doing a bi-amping experiment. I used 2 channels for my surrounds, 2 channels for my left channel, 2 channels for my right channel, and the last 2 channels were used for the center channel because I was able to bi-amp my front stage. So during this experiment of doing the bi-amping, started off okay, and then I started running into some issues with it. Now, did I run into issues with the amp, the speakers, my processor? No, actually I ran into issues with the stupid ass Sewell banana plugs I had on the ends of my speakers. I simply would plug them into the back here. They would go in, feel secure. I turn around, start listening to my movie, and then all of a sudden I might notice like one speaker's only putting out bass, the other one's only putting out highs, or it's just all together working. So I'm like, okay, that's odd. Start wiggling the banana connectors. They start working till I move them a certain way, and then they stop working. So I end up taking some of them off. Luckily, I had extra banana plugs because only way I could really plug into this 8-channel amp was with the banana plugs because of the way it's made. Now, if these ports were instead of vertical like you see here, but rather horizontal, I could have just stuck my spade connectors on them and solved the problem very easily. But I was only able to put the spade connectors on my speaker ends, and they worked flawlessly, so they were not the problem. I wanted to put them here, but because they were so large, if you try to angle them, they could touch, arc, and then you could short out the amplifier. And I did not want to do that. So after fiddling around with enough banana plugs, I eventually got it to all work. I left it set up approximately about a week. Enjoyed it. It was cool. It was different. Would I try it again? I don't think I'm going to, just because the speaker wires were the failure point, or I could say the weakest link in this experiment, which kind of sucked because I was hoping they would be the most important link in this experiment to make it work flawlessly, and it didn't. But if, depending on when this video drops, you'll probably see I may or may not have found a solution to where I can plug into the back of these where I no longer have the issues of banana plugs falling out. So, not going to say what that is, but if the video is out, you'll have seen what I bought to fix that problem with the loose banana plugs, which allows me to still keep this Buckeye amp and not be so, I guess you could say, a little scarred by the fact that the connectors go vertically versus horizontally like they are on my monoblocks, which made, when I did this experiment of the bi-amping versus each individual single channel versus this and my 3 monoblocks, a total success for everything but the bi-amping. But here's what I will also tell you. I do like having this with my 3 monoblocks because with the new banana connectors I bought, I will now be able to really use this without a problem and without banana connectors falling out of it, and still use this little speaker wire, which I will tell you is good speaker wire. Just wouldn't buy the pre-made ones with the banana connectors on it, because you will have to change them out or cut them off and put different ones on there if you don't want them to fall out. I actually like that setup probably the best. And the reason is I have the expandability with this 8-channel amp to do a lot more with my surround sound, whereas this Emotiva, I really don't. What I do like about the Emotiva, I'll be upfront with you, it does have pretty good power output. I don't have to turn the volume up as loud to get the same amount of volume out of my speakers. And that's just for me listening with my ears, and my ears being the decibel meter. So you can take that information with a grain of salt if you'd like to. But my belief is this: if it sounds good to my ears, that's all that really matters, is it sounds good to my ears. As far as the Emotiva goes, I liked it as well. I would probably say my top 2 setups are probably going to be with this 8-channel amp and the 3 mono blocks, and this 5-channel amp. And with the 5-channel amp, I didn't need to use this, but I had this available to me if I wanted to use it to definitely expand above and beyond just the 5 channels, which means I could have actually ran 13 channels with this amp included, as opposed to the 11 I'm currently running, or could run, with just using all my Buckeye amps. So, what am I going to keep? Well, I'm definitely keeping my mono blocks. I like them too much. The Purifi amps do have a very, very nice clean sound. They are very low distortion. Can they get as loud as this Emotiva amp? Yes. Do I have to turn the volume up just a little bit more to get a little more oomph out of them? Yes, I do. But that's the difference between the type of Class D amplification the Buckeye amps use versus the Emotiva. And I see nothing wrong with that. Can you mix and match them? I'm sure you could. If it were me, I would tell somebody, if you're definitely like the Emotiva amps, but also like the Buckeye amps, so you can have a multi-channel amp like this, you could do kind of like what you see sitting in front of you. Have a 5-channel XPA5 amp, 8-channel Buckeye. I can use the 5-channel to run my 5 bed layer speakers, and the 8-channel to run the rest of my surround sound system. Only thing that becomes a little bit of a downer if you go with the 8-channel amp is if you're trying to keep, or you have like rears that aren't large speakers, which is what I would recommend use with the Emotiva amp, so you can get the most out of it. The Buckeye amp could do it, but you may want to think about bi-amping larger speakers if you do this particular model. If you go with the Buckeye amp that has the larger Hypex modules in them, where they're putting out, I believe, an output of around, if I remember correctly, I think they were like about 375 to 400 at 8 ohms and about 500 at 4 ohms. You wouldn't need the Emotiva amp at all. More than likely, you could probably get that 8-channel amp, and you could probably get at least a couple of mono blocks, maybe even their 3-channel amp that they have, or you could just simply get another 4 or 6-channel amp, and you've got enough modules there to run just about anything that you want off of it. So kind of up to you guys what you want to do. Now, I do know Emotiva does make more than just the XPA5. I know they have mono blocks all the way up to, I believe I've seen, what is it? I think they do 3. I think, if I'm not mistaken, their biggest one is like either an 11 or 13 channel amplifier. I don't really remember. but I know they have one out there that could basically be an all-in-one box system. So if you're looking for an all-in-one box system, Emotiva is a great way to go. If you don't mind having the extra amplifiers and something that takes up a little more space, go with the Buckeyes. They're just as good. You just have to pick the ones that are rated to your speakers. In my case, this one here with the smaller Hypex amplifiers is decent enough for the bookshelf speakers and possibly even the Atmos speakers I plan on buying in the future. Other than that, that's how this experiment went. Leave a comment down below on which amplifiers you think won or which setup you think won. I'll rank them as following. For me, the 8-channel with the 3 monoblocks is the top one, just because I have all the expandability. Followed by the Emotiva XPA5, running my system as it currently sits with the 5 bed layers in the sub. And in last place was doing the bi-amping, and through no fault of the amplifier, speakers, or I will even go as far as to say the wires themselves, but more or less the ends on the wires being the problem. I will call the banana plugs the issue of why I ranked that one at the bottom. The other thing I also want to point out, and I just now remembered this was something I noticed when I was only using this amplifier as the primary one for all 5 of my channels. The Hypex amplifier does have like a little click noise that you can hear when it first fires up. So that is one thing I was not expecting, and it was audible through the speakers. Now, I will tell you the Emotiva amp does make clicking noises when it boots up, but it's not an audible click through the speakers, but rather the amplifier itself, as it does its little safety check to make sure it's safe enough to power on. But this one, when it clicked on, I heard it through the speakers, which is maybe a deal breaker for some people, but I only noticed it because this was the only amp I was running at the time. Now, when I had this set up with the surrounds and what will probably be the rest of my home theater speakers, I don't know if I'll hear that click or not. Reason being, the way I turn everything on, and because I have the trigger selector from Emotiva that spaces out as the amps turn on, I can actually watch my amps turn on one by one, with the exception of this one. It actually triggers on the same time as the first amp triggers on with my Buckeye system until the little trigger sequencer turns on the rest of the amps. That's really it. But the cool thing is when I have it separated like that, I do not hear the click or pop noise that comes through the speakers. So that being said, back to where I was going. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Also leave your comment down below which setup you think should have won, and would you have ranked them the same way I did, where the bi-amping came in last and my 4 separate amplifiers came in first. Leave it down below. Let's discuss it. Y'all have a great day.